Hello, everyone. This is Andre, and I'm one half of the ALnDreShow, the podcast. And yes, we are coming to you from the beautiful city that is Los Angeles.
My name is Alex, or Al. I'm the other half of the ALnDreShow of the podcast. And, we both just want to start by saying hopefully we have a little bit of your time and we stimulate your mind today with some LA sports talk of all the teams of LA that include the Los Angeles Lakers, the Dodgers, the 49ers, and the Raiders.
Yes, and remember that although the Raiders and 49ers aren't necessarily LA, we are a city that is filled with leaders, with champions, and with survivors in every respect. So we're looking forward to breaking all that down for you guys.
So sit back, fix those headphones, those earphones, however you may be listening, where you may be listening. Sit back, relax, and hopefully, enjoy what you're listening to. And we're gonna jump straight into it.
So again, I'm Andre.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the ALnDreShow, the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ALnDreShow. This is the first episode back in a little while. We both had to take a break for, school and work and a whole bunch of other reasons. But we are both very glad to be back and in your guys' homes and just, ready to give another listen and hopefully give us another try. Just to introduce yourselves again, my name is Andre. I am one half of the ALnDreShow, the podcast.
I am Alexandra, Alex, or the other half of the ALnDreShow, the Al part of it. And yeah, just gonna give you guys hopefully some good insights, some new opinions that we haven't maybe had before or thought about. But yeah, we're here to just talk about some sports, some Los Angeles sports as a whole, and hopefully let's get into that pretty soon.
Yeah. So first but definitely not least, obviously, would be the Los Angeles Lakers, baby. So for those of you who may not know, but I'm sure most of you, if you're listeners or just in general, know, the Lakers are making it to the NBA Finals. They will go up against the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, and it was quite a journey for them. They had a very successful playoff run. They have had a very terrific season, and right now, what we're gonna do is go ahead and go into the regular season. They had a terrific regular season, and we're going to go into all the details of that and just what a terrific season they had. So, do you want to go ahead and start it?
Yeah, definitely just look at maybe some of the team leaders and statistical categories such as points, blocks, rebounds, things of that nature. But the leader in points per game actually was Anthony Davis at a 26.1. And then at rebounds per game, we see Anthony Davis up there again, 9.3, which again, he's totally snubbed for the defensive player of the year. That's just, again, my opinion out there. And then assists, who else besides LeBron James at 10.2. And then we have blocks per game, Anthony Davis again, steals again, Anthony Davis, about 2 for the blocks and about, maybe 2 for the steals there. And then minutes leading LeBron James with 34. So these are just some of the numbers and statistical categories that the team leaders really showed, as we have seen from the playoffs. Anthony Davis and LeBron James leading the Lakers with their 6th and 7th men off the bench. Games here and there. It'll be Kuzma, it'll be AC, Dion Waiters, people like that. It'll just have really good games for them. But consistently, it's been Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
So yeah, as Alex said, it's definitely a 2-man show, and I think a lot of the for the Western Conference, anyways, throughout the playoffs, a lot of it was the duos against duos. In the first round, we had LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the LA duo, against the Portland duo and CJ McCollum and Dame Dollar, or Damian Lillard, as some of you may know. And a lot of the playoffs are really just kind of seeing what duo would do better. And ultimately, Anthony Davis and LeBron James prevailed. Whether it was the LeBron James triple-double or Anthony Davis going for over 30 points and shooting, over 50% or close to 50% from the field. So he was just really out there, and he really put the team on his back. And that was the first official, we'll call it, light out?
Sure. Yeah, light out for the
light
time
out
being.
for
the video,
the time
especially
being.
Because everyone just be having on and off, just flickering just a bit as you are recording outside. It is a bit dark out here, but we do have a light sensor, so that'll be what that is.
Yeah, but no worries. We're gonna get that fixed soon. Hopefully, you guys will see more of us and less of the light outs. That being said, so it wasn't just LeBron James and Anthony Davis aren't the only ones on the team. We have some good scorers. So we're gonna go ahead and give you guys the top scoring and shooting percentages for the team. So Anthony Davis led in field goal percentage he shot about 50% from the field, and LeBron James was a close second. He shot about 49% from the field, and yours, one and only Alex's favorite player, well, close to probably, or definitely second favorite, if not favorite, but Kyle Kuzma, he shot 43% from the field. So, there is a bit of a dip as far as field goal percentages, but, when you're trailing behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis, it's quite a lot to, ask to keep up with them. And I think Kuzma throughout the regular season did, and he really showed that he can be the third guy at times, but also, other guys had to get involved. And, that's what a team's about. It's about picking that one guy up or picking several guys up and just saying like, hey, this is a team effort and we're gonna get through this. Next would be the 3 point percentage. A lot of guys on this team throughout the playoffs we've seen can knock down shots and at times also knock down shots. So throughout the regular season, there's a lot of ups and downs, but we have some pretty good 3 point shooters. First off, who led the team in 3 point percentage would be KCP, Contavious Caldwell Pope. He's been here since last year. He's always been that 3 and D guy. He knows how to really stroke the ball, and when he gets hot, he gets really hot. But just as the same with a guy who's very streaky, you have to stick with him when he's ice cold, but also you stick with him when he's red hot. So he shot about 38.5% from three. Danny Green was next. He came in the off season. He was seen as the three guy, if only that's all he does. But we've seen him throughout the regular season and playoffs as well. Again, that he's a 3 and D guy, and that's what he brought to the table. And he shot about 36%. So a lot of these guys, KCP and Danny Green, they just really showed out with the 3 point percentages and their three ball and also their defense.
Yeah, and then just next up, we have our free throw percentages, which been watching the playoffs and regular season, it's been a struggle for them to unfortunately actually consistently have those nights where you have those 8 for 9 free throws or those 10 and 11s. You get maybe the 3 for 5s, or we have those off nights where we are getting to the line, but the percentages necessarily isn't there, and we do kind of see it as well. Anthony Davis, not necessarily. He has one of the better strokes in the game, one of the bigger big men that does have a better stroke, but he was shooting 84.6% from the free throw line, followed up by Avery Bradley at 83.3%, who actually currently isn't playing inside of the bubble due to family reasons, and all
You
of
got to
the
keep his family safe, so we totally get that. He's still a Laker. He just had to keep his family safe. But yeah, as Alex said, leaving a lot of lettuce and ham and cheese and mustard on the. There's pretty much 3 points left on the floor, and we definitely got to get better at that come finals time. But continue.
Yeah, and then just to round those two players out, it would be LeBron James with the 34.8%, which a lot of people, a lot of critics who aren't maybe big fans or advocates of LeBron James being the second coming of the GOAT, or people want to label him as that, but they have been getting on him for his inability to actually make and sink free throws late in games or just normally, as you see that there with the free throw percentage.
Yeah,
So
he actually shot around 73% from free throw percentage. The 34% was actually relating to his 3 point percentage, which is relatively good for someone who isn't necessarily a three guy. He likes to go in the paint a lot and get a lot of and ones and fouls in the lane. So yeah, but to Alex's point, a lot of people who are a critic of LeBron James really point to his free throws and how at times he's not necessarily a clutch free throw shooter or just even a good free throw shooter at times. So that's definitely something he needs to step up come finals time. But yeah, that was a regular season. A lot of again, a majority of the stats leaders were going to be, as most people would guess, were going to be LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And it's not a problem. It's a 2 man team, and they have a lot of pieces around them to complement them. So for some of you who may know, we have a couple returning players, and I just wanted to give them a couple a nod to kind of see how they progress within this Lakers team. Most importantly, or just most notably, would be Kyle Kuzma, his transition from last season to this season. So if Alex going to go ahead and discuss Kyle Kuzma's jump from this season to last
yeah, as you
season.
mentioned, since drafting him, he's kind of been a guy that's been under the radar, and he definitely hadn't gotten too many looks other than maybe the All Star, the All Rookie nod he got last year with Lonzo Ball. Actually not last year, the year before that. But yeah, just his big jump. Yeah. So just a big jump from initially going under the radar and not really, setting out to be much other than, a chance pick. But his shot selection has been getting better because he's getting a lot less looks with LeBron and Anthony Davis on the floor, taking up a lot of minutes, as you mentioned. But even with less shots and even maybe a little less minutes, he's still been able to have an impact effectively with his plus minus. Always been on the positive end. His defense has been pretty impeccable when they do want to rest LeBron and AD and those guys. He's supposedly undersized at the power forward position, which I just think that maybe it's more of a facade or he just looks a bit smaller, but he plays big. He can defend just about anybody. Other than the 7 footers and those really really big guys, but I think where I see his biggest progression is on the defensive end with his quick feet. Being able to rotate, being able to take those charges, being able to have his defensive IQ up. Because yeah, he might not have the offensive skill set of which I don't get me wrong. I do think his threes incredible, and when you have the open look, he's gonna take it, and he has handles. But I just to the biggest leap from last year is defensively, and just seeing him, getting off those loose balls or just get in front of anybody who necessarily wants to take it to the rim. So
So yeah, I think Kyle's improved in a lot of ways. You know, a lot of people would say that he needs to be that he needs to step up and be that third guy. And I am in agreement with the idea that hey, he's been here. You know, we traded Brandon and Lonzo away to keep him here, and obviously I'm sure he doesn't think about that because it's a league, it's a make or miss league, as a lot of people say on ESPN. If you've seen that, they say it a lot, and it means a lot to him, I think, to still be with this franchise, still be a Lakers. So for him, his next step, I think, in the right direction is really being that, that number three guy. When he's in, he's gonna knock down that shot, or he is gonna play that great defense. And at times we've seen it from him, in the bubble. I think it was one of the last games of the regular season where he made that he made a game winner, a buzzer beater, and that was like, hey, we saw for the first time in a very long time, like he has that in him to kind of be that clutch guy. And I think moving into the finals, whereas he struggled at times in the Denver series, whether it was guarding Jamal Murray or guarding Paul Millsap or really guarding anybody, he would kind of the other player would get the best of him. But I think again he needs to take the next step and progress, which would be this finals. I think is really be assertive, take control defensively, and be one of the leaders that this team needs. And I think he is capable of doing that. We just need to see it from him, and that includes, taking better shot selections and getting to the foul line more, and just being that guy that they need him to be. Our next, one of my personal favorites. He's not necessarily like the biggest, plus minus guy, or just he's not filling up his stat sheets every night. But one of I think our personal favorites and just a really cool guy. It seems like anyway is Alex Caruso, the AC show. He's also taken leaps and bounds. I think he's statistically he's been about the same guy. He's getting a little bit more minutes. He's scoring a little bit more, but ultimately, I think his biggest jump is just defensively and definitely being the energy, that Energizer Bunny, some people would say, or just that much needed kick and boost off the bench. And oftentimes, I think because of that boost and because of that mentality of like he's gonna die for the ball. He's really in it every minute, and even at times even in several interviews, he said that he likes the memes and he likes being called the GOAT, but also at the end of the day, he is a professional basketball player, and I think that professionalism and that mentality he takes with him just really elevates him and allows him to be an essential piece to this team for many reasons, especially off the bench.
yeah, I definitely agree with you and say that he is an energizer when LeBron's down or he's playing heavy minutes right before the half, or they need him in to maybe not need him to make it necessarily a big steal or a big block, because you can't really expect those things. More on play and a field thing, but they do expect him to be out there, a defensive anchor. If he's out there, your guards are gonna have trouble getting loose, getting open shots or getting off the ball, because he's gonna stick to you. He's gonna get through those screens. Even with those shifty defenders, you've seen like Westbrook, he was still able to get in front of them and just be a pest and get low, stay in his heels, and ultimately just really shut them down. And again, he's not one of those elite defenders, but he's on his just as well could be on his way up there. So
So, and just as we close out the review of the 2019 to 2020 season for the Los Angeles Lakers. They wound up in first in the Pacific Division, and they were the overall number one seed in the Western Conference, and they finished with a record of 52-19. So less than 20 losses, I think pretty impressive, a very successful regular season. So now we will be moving on to the first round of the playoffs, and that was against the one and only Portland Trailblazers. So overall, before we get into each game, how do you feel the series went ultimately for the Lakers, and obviously for Portland as well, ultimately losing? But how do you feel the Lakers looked, and how do you think they did for the series?
Well, I think just the Lakers going in, I wouldn't necessarily say it was like a warm up because competition is very heavy and they can't take anybody lightly. But just having have that playing game against Memphis and that going really down to the wire, really close. I do think though LeBron James going in had his mind ready, had his body rested, knew that he had to take care of business. And obviously they had that one game slip up. Dame had his three, his logo shots, and they had their bigs working and there was also a point I think when we were still hampered with a lot of injuries. We didn't really know where our guards were going to come from, and there again, LeBron and AD were playing the heavy minutes. AD wasn't being nearly as aggressive, so that was where we see maybe AD kind of backing off from LeBron getting out. I'm like, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to get your shots up. You need to be the defensive anchor. You need to shoot 8 times or 9 times in a quarter, like whenever you're on the floor. But I do think that it was just kind of warm up series to them, and that yeah, it would be a genuine sweep or a sweep ultimately.
Yeah, so they did ultimately end up winning this series against Portland in the first round by a series of 4-1. They took the gentleman sweep in 5 games. In the first game, we had Portland winning by a score of 100-93, so only a 7-point win for Portland. In that game, we saw CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard drop for a combined 51 points, while they shot 17 of 42, and they went 9 of 21 from the three. So in that game they were really going off, and they just had, as Alex said, they had all cylinders on fire. They had their bigs playing up. They had Carmelo Anthony going off for a lot. He was very clutch for them in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter. And yeah, that was game one. But then after game one, like Alex said, LeBron kind of locked in. He talked to Anthony Davis. He kind of put Anthony Davis on notice, like, hey, this is your team. We're gonna follow you. We're gonna follow your lead. So from that point moving forward, we just kind of seen that aggressive side to the Lakers, and then they would ultimately won 4 straight games after that. In game two, they won by a score of 111-88. So a 20 plus point win for the Lakers. And in that game, Anthony Davis put up 31 points and he got 11 rebounds. So he was able to achieve a double double. He shot 17. No, he didn't. I'm sorry. He shot 13 of 22 from the floor, and 4 Lakers were in double digits. So, everyone was contributing, and that's where we see those big blowouts when you have your main guy like Anthony or LeBron scoring 30 plus and getting everybody involved, which and then turns multiple players having terrific games with at least 10 points. Next, we have our game three. If you want to go ahead and discuss game three.
Yeah, game three is actually a final score of 116-108 with the Los Angeles Lakers taking that W. And actually, it was led by LBJ and Anthony Davis combining for 67 points, with LBJ having the more points with 38, 12 rebounds and 8 assists. So just 2 assists shy of actually achieving a triple double, which it's a very hard feat to come by. But with LeBron James, on the ball, you don't really know what you're gonna get night in, night out. That's always a possibility with him, just with his ability to read the basketball with his assist numbers. Have a smell for the ball, I would say, with his rebounding and obviously his ability to get to the lane and just shoot the basketball is incredible. So again, every opportunity, every night they play, go out there, he can have a triple double, and that was just one of those nights where he just really went out there and got it. You seen his three ball working. He was getting shifty and swifty with his handles, and ultimately just couldn't stop him. LBJ, his 17th year, everybody wants to say it's Giannis with the MVP. Well, he definitely looked like MVP of the Western Conference in that series, and yeah, he just took it to them, and they just never recovered fully.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, as Alex mentioned very briefly, a couple of weeks ago, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who plays for the Milwaukee Bucks, and a lot of people see as the next face of the NBA, it's up for agreement, for disagreement, but we'll just say he is. He ultimately won another MVP. Last year he also won one, so this is his back-to-back regular season MVP, and a lot of people felt that, including LeBron James. He publicly addressed this, and he was frustrated with the fact that he didn't. He felt he deserved it, and I think a lot of Laker fans and even non-Laker fans believe that he did deserve it coming into his 17th year and just really putting in that work during the regular season. Obviously, you could see through the team record and just his individual accolades that he was deserving of it, but ultimately he didn't get that. He didn't get that recognition or MVP trophy. But hey, it's onto the playoffs, and ultimately championships are worth more than MVPs for some people. So, the next two games, the Lakers close out the series very briefly. In Game 4, they won by a score of 20, 135 to 115. In that game, LeBron scored 30 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds. And both Anthony Davis and Kyle Kuzma scored 18. So it was just a team effort. And again, we saw LeBron just doing what he needs to do, putting the team on his back, and just kind of, put getting on the Laker train and just going on to the next series. And in Game 5, the Lakers wound up finishing the series off by a score of 131 to 122. And in that game, Anthony Davis was able to get 43 points, so he was on fire. And LeBron James was able to grab another triple double with 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. So again, as Alex mentioned, always a chance of a triple double. And in the first round of the playoffs, we've seen LeBron James do that. And again, it's always a possibility. You just gotta be aware of where LeBron is at all times, and he's gonna facilitate the best way he can, and he's gonna help his team win the best way he can by shooting, scoring, and passing, and that's what he's able to do very frequently, very confidently. So again, he's always a triple double threat. So next would be the second round against the Houston Rockets.
And for that round, a lot of people were saying the matchup that Russell Westbrook and actually James Harden would give to the Lakers would have them up in knots. They wouldn't know what to do with all the shooting, three barrages, and all that. But very quickly you could see that there were just flaws to that system. You live and die by the three. Sometimes they're just not going to go down, and I think towards the end of the series, that's ultimately happened for them. Unfortunately, they're taking not making a whole lot of them, and the size that the Lakers had just ultimately were too much. That's where you've seen JaVale and Dwight kind of get more of the minutes than they actually didn't see towards the end of the conference finals, because they actually both didn't play too much. Other than actually that's rephrase
Dwight
that.
played a lot, but
Yeah.
definitely not JaVale. And I think Alex said the Lakers were able to capitalize on the size that the Houston Rockets didn't have. And Game 1, Houston ultimately took that game by a score of 112 to 97. And that was when everyone was like, "Oh, are the threes too much for LeBron? What's gonna happen? What happened with the size? Even though they're so small, they were able to win against a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who's almost 7 feet or is 7 feet. So what are they gonna do?" Very quickly, I think everyone, including especially the Lakers, realized that, hey, we have the size. We need to attack the basket. We need to attack the rim. We need to rebound more. We need to be more aggressive, and ultimately we will win. And then again, much like the first round matchup against Portland, the Lakers took the gentleman sweep again by winning the series 4 games to 1. And again, ultimately after Game 1, the Lakers just tapped into the size advantage that they had, and they just took advantage of Houston the best way they could. So for Game 2, the Lakers won that game 117 to 109. And in that game, Anthony Davis put up 34 points. He put up 10 rebounds, and LeBron also had him very close in points with 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. So again, another game we see from LeBron. He's very shy of another triple double, and it was just we see the greatness that is LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
So yeah, and then we move on to Game 3 with actually a total final score of 112 to 102, with the Lakers also winning that game. LeBron James finished the game with 36 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. And they actually another key playmaker, which was an anomaly, or rather odd for the playoffs, given that he had just came back from injury. But Rajon Rondo
Playoff Rondo,
actually
baby.
came into the game and contributed quite a lot with 21 points and 9 assists. And then on that game, he actually did move up into the all-time playoffs assist record books, passing Kobe Bean Bryant. So that was another big
Shout out to
night for
Kobe.
him. And then the last and third final piece for that night for the W was Anthony Davis with his 26 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 assists. So overall, you kind of just see the Lakers will have their nights where you have a Rondo, you have a Markieff Morris, or you have a Dion Waiters or a Kyle Kuzma give you the 12, the 15s, the 16s with assists or blocks or good defense or just the intangible things that you can't really teach, but rather it's repetition and getting that game experience. So and then moving on to game 4, actually it was again not too close. As Andy mentioned, they just really tapped in and locked into their size advantage and knew what they needed to do, and it was a final score of 110 to 100 with the Los Angeles Lakers winning. And Anthony Davis finished with 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. And actually, 5 players finished in double digits for the Lakers, including LeBron James with 16 points and 15 rebounds. Alex Caruso, the AC show,
Baby, that's his
Caruso,
first. He tapped in with 16 points. He had 16.
and then Rajon Rondo with 11 points, 8 assists, 10 rebounds. And both KCP and Danny Green finished off with 10 points apiece.
They were
So
both very productive from the three. I think they both shot over 50% from three, and they just had a stellar night from the 3 point line. And ultimately, to finish off the Houston series, we took it to game 5, where the Lakers absolutely destroyed the Houston Rockets to send them packing home by a score of 119 to 96. And in that game, again, very, very typical of LeBron to almost like teased a triple double. It feels like, but he was ultimate. He was able to get 29 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. And all starters for that game were able to score at least 10 points, and ultimately they all shot together over 60% from the field. So again, it was a statement game for the Lakers. They were able to put Houston away, and they were just ready and prepared for their next and final competition in the West, which would be the Western Conference Finals against the Denver Nuggets, or the Denver Six Piece, or the Denver Happy Meal, or the Denver, I don't want to call them, but we'll say Denver Nuggets for now. And it was a very tough series. It was a very successful and tough road for Denver heading into this playoff series. For those of you that don't know, prior to facing the Lakers, the Nuggets were, I believe, the first, or I think they were the first and only team to successfully come back from a 3-1 series deficit in the first 2 rounds of their series. In the first round, they're able to come back from Utah Jazz by a score by a 3-1. They came back and won it in Game 7. They did it in the second round to the Los Angeles Clippers. Yeah, the Clippers, those guys who think they're part of Los Angeles, but that team, they were able to come back, and Denver was able to come back and successfully win in Game 7 again against the LA Clippers, and now they were going up against the Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, hoping for some magic again, as we saw throughout that series that the Lakers had very dominant games at times, but also Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were able to try and keep the dreams of Denver alive, but ultimately their dreams were crushed. What would you
yeah, I
say?
would definitely say that the crush part is a great part to that sentence and the overall sentiment towards the Denver season, because when it came to just playing the Lakers, they I wouldn't say they didn't have it, because there was a lot of times in those games where it did come close. It was the last second shot, or it was a defending down play, or it was foul trouble to Jokic, or it was just very knick-knack or like tic-tacky things, dink-tacky things that really come down to 1 or 2 plays in a ball game. But ultimately, it was the Lakers that came out on top, and yeah, they just came out there and crushed him. LeBron James did what he needed to do as far as being connoisseur of basketball and really knowing where to put everybody, where to get guys open, where to draw zones, where to read certain players, where to foul somebody, where to try to clog the lane, or where on defense they need to be at, and all those things that ultimately led to the Lakers winning those ball games. And one of the games that they actually highlighted was Anthony Davis making an insane buzzer beater to actually, seal that win for them. And that was where people were thinking a sweep at that point. But
Yeah, and that buzzer beater actually, um, I think just for the team as a whole, but just as a fan, I want to say that that game I think swayed a lot of people's minds that hey, Denver thought they had a shot because they actually they were very close games. That game had the Denver Nuggets won. I think we would have saw a different series, but thankfully Anthony Davis was clutch and was able to make that shot. But as Alex said, Denver is a very good ball club, and I know I said that they were crushed and all that stuff, and their dreams were crushed. But ultimately, I think they have real good ball players in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, and a lot of and they have a lot of those two guys, especially. I think they're going to be good for a very long time as long as Jamal Murray stays on his game and Nikola Jokic continues to get better. Michael Porter, who a lot of people didn't really notice until the playoffs, he's going to be a real star and a real ball player as well. So I think they have a lot progressing and a lot going in the right direction for them. But ultimately, this year was not their year, as a lot of people say. So yeah, they ultimately, the Lakers ended up winning that series in another gentleman's sweep by a game by a series score of 4-1, and again, it was just a lot of dominance from LeBron James.
so the first game, we see a final score of 126 to 114 with the Lakers winning that one. Anthony Davis finished with 37 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. LeBron James finished that game with 16 points, 12 assists, and 6 rebounds. So his points actually were not up there, but we do see the double double being active from him, and they actually still do pull out the W. So I think one of those games is where Anthony Davis took over, probably had one of those 20 plus shots, 25 shots type of games, and held it down on the defensive end. But yeah, I think the next game was where we see that the buzzer beater, but as I just mentioned in game two, with a final score of 105 to 103 with the Lakers winning. Anthony Davis hitting the buzzer beater, calling Kobe to seal it for the W at the end. But yeah, he just had a really dominant performance with his 31 points. And LBJ's 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists, along with a lot of good defensive plays by Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, and Markieff Morris. I think definitely. So yeah, and then just to move on to
Now we
game
have
three.
Game 3, which is going to be the one Denver win, and in that game, 3 Denver starters scored 20 plus points. That would be Jamal Murray, who scored 12 points and had 11 assists and 8 rebounds. Nikola Jokic, who
28
scored
points for Jamal Murray.
28 points, excuse me. Nikola Jokic had 22 points and 10 rebounds and 5 assists for that game, so he was a bit of everywhere on the court. And Jeremy Grant, who who gave them a much needed boost in that series by giving them 26 points. But after game 3, we see again the Laker dominance. In game 4, the Lakers won by a score of 114 to 108. AD again doing what he does. He had 34 points. He shot 10 from 15 from the field. And LeBron James, again, always teasing that triple double with 26 points, 8 assists, and 9 rebounds. And in game 5, the Lakers did it. They sealed the deal in the Western Conference Finals by a score of 117 to 107. And LeBron closed the series out with a triple double by a score of 30, with a stat line of 38 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists. So, yes, even in the game that they need to go to the finals, LeBron comes up with an almost 40-point triple double. So, just an amazing stat line for a true great of basketball, and just the current greatness of the Los Angeles Lakers. So now here we are with our NBA final preview. Yes, the NBA Finals preview. You're gonna get Mark Jackson in your home, baby. Love him, great commentator, great guy, awesome guy. Should hopefully coach again, but if not, hey, I understand that coaching is very stressful. But yeah, NBA final times, babe, and the NBA finals. It's going to be the Los Angeles Lakers going up against the Miami Heat. So right here live on this podcast, what we're gonna do is make our official prediction for the finals. I don't think it's I wouldn't be remiss in saying that we both believe the Lakers will win this and we will be the 2020 NBA Finals champions. We will be able to hoist up the Larry O'Brien trophy once again for no, and I know people may get mad at this. I don't care. The greatest basketball franchise to ever exist, and that includes the Boston Celtics. Okay, I said it. It's the truth. That's fine. We're gonna move on. That being said, Alex, how do you think the finals will go for the Los Angeles Lakers?
I think it's gonna go to probably about a game six with the Lakers coming out on top. I think Miami is just they've proven themselves to not I think fly under the radar once the playoffs initially started, but then once everybody's seen how they handled the Milwaukee Bucks and how they got to straight to business with everybody they particularly played with. So they're no one to joke about. They have shooters. They got all the right talent around them. Everyone was saying no in a couple of years, but no, I think that you can do it right now. You got Tyler Harrow, making history as one of the youngest players to score over 20 points in a playoff game or in an Eastern Conference Final Series. He averaged about 20 points. And then again, they have Jimmy Butler, who's been a dog, who's been a leader for them on and off the court. And they kind of just rally around him. He might not need to get you the 25 or the 20s, but he's going to get his rebounds. He's going to secure the ball on defense and, lock guys down. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really gritty battle. But yeah, the Lakers are going to come out on top with the experience they have in Anthony Davis's hunger to chase that ring that he's been coveting for so long.
Yeah, I think playing for the New Orleans Pelicans, and no disrespect to them, I'm sure they have stellar fans and they have a nice stadium, and they're starting to build a culture there with Zion Williamson and Lonzo Ball and all these good guys, Drew Holiday, a lot of good players. But being in New Orleans can only get you so far, and I think that strive and that want to be a champion and to have that ring for someone like Anthony Davis, who is, I believe, again, people have slept on a very long time, me included. Just recently, I mean, he's always been a good player, but I don't think until he's been on the Lakers, I've really truly assessed who he is as a player. And at times, he really does seem unstoppable on the basketball court. You're telling me this is a guy who's nearly 7 feet tall, 7'1" almost, when he has shoes on and he's jumping, shooting threes, being able to back you down, being able to pull up, being able to do a number of things, being able to block you, being spectacular on defense. And yeah, we have that guy being paired up with one of the greatest of all time, period, in LeBron James. So again, in my prediction, I think this will go 6 games, similar to Alex, but I think we will have a very much more dominant. We will see a much more dominant player in LeBron James and also in Anthony Davis. And in several interviews or just several, when LeBron or Anthony Davis talk about this team, from the very start, I feel like it was known that this is Anthony Davis's team and it's his journey and his opportunity to really push the Lakers to be champions. And I think he will ultimately do that. Some things outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron James that I would like to focus on and for the Lakers to focus on. I love the way Dwight Howard has been playing. Um, Throughout the regular season, he got minutes here and there, and he was kind of seen as the 10 and 10 guy, 10 points, 10 rebounds. But as of late, in a lot of interviews or just the way he plays, he's still being aggressive, and he's that veteran leader that the Lakers need. They have a lot of veteran leaders for these young guys, for the Kyle Kuzmas and the Alex Carusos, and a lot of these guys to look up to. And I think Dwight Howard can really be that essential piece to kind of really push these guys together on top of the awesome talent and expertise and experience that LeBron has, that Rondo has. He's also an NBA champion. LeBron's an NBA champion. There's so many guys who have been there before who are champions, but I do think that Dwight Howard can be that next guy and be that veteran leader for them. And just a quick little side note, not really a joking matter, but I think the AC show must go on. It must continue. He needs to be that spark plug he's always been, and I have no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that he won't continue to do that. But with someone as electric and as riled up and as energetic and as great as Jimmy Butler is, I think it's AC's responsibility to be at that level. Because as Alex said, Jimmy Butler's a dog. He's gonna fight for every play. He's gonna fight for every loose ball. He's gonna fight until the end. It doesn't matter. So I think that's what AC needs to do. And one quick thing, I know we've seen it very briefly in the playoffs. Kyle Kuzma absolutely needs to produce in the finals. Otherwise, it will be that much harder for the Lakers to ultimately win. I think in the last series against Denver, he didn't show as much as he needed to. He was great on defense at times, but he wasn't making the right shots at times. He was having bad shot selection. That's, that's just him as a player. Everyone grows. He's still, this is his third year into his NBA career. He's a lot to learn. He has LeBron around him, AD, Rajon Rondo, all these guys. But I do think when he's coming off the bench, he needs to produce. And if he produces, that will be the final touches to a Laker championship. Any other input?
No, I think I'm gonna have to co-sign and agree with them all of your points. I do say that your last point about Kyle Kuzma, needing to step up. I do agree. He hasn't started, and when he has, it's due to a sideline injuries, or the main guys they want out there are just not able to be out there. But he has been able to contribute here and there. But yeah, his stroke needs to come back. He needs to work on his jumper. His three ball needs to be there. His open looks, when he does get them, they just need to go down for him. It's not the time to be missing. So I'll agree with that. He hasn't been necessarily producing, or just being the guy for shots. At times they have been looking other places, other ways to get it done away from him. But yeah, that can't be the case when finals times, because they are going to need everybody for a shot, and it could be you kind of thing.
Yeah, but definitely could be him. It was him at several points throughout the entire playoff run, and he didn't have it. But I'm hoping he's focused, he's concentrated, and he will be that guy for the Lakers. So on video, on audio, on record, the ALnDreShow, our finals prediction will be the Los Angeles Lakers will be 2020 NBA champions by a series score of 4 games to 2. I think Miami again can get two W's out of the Lakers, but ultimately the Lakers will win. So there you have it, folks. That was the Laker season review, regular season and playoff review. Now,
and I think just you did want to touch also on that, maybe some highlighted players or certain matchup with certain teams, or just let us know about that. But that was our review for the Lakers season and what we are looking towards for the finals and our preview matchup against Miami Heat.
now we will be moving on to our favorite baseball team, the one and only in the city of Los Angeles, the city that bleeds blue, the city that is and always will be the city of angels, but not in that way, because the Anaheim Angels are not Los Angeles. That being said, we will be discussing the one and only the Los Angeles Dodgers. And ultimately, for all of baseball, I would like to start off by saying that I would know. I think you would agree that this was a fairly odd season to begin.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So ultimately, we're used to having 162 games, 162 spectacular baseball games for all of baseball fans to enjoy from early May to late September to early October if your team's there. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic and people wanting to be safe, we were only able to get a 60-game season, which is it was. I enjoyed the season. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I think the games were condensed and that they matter that much more. But I think towards the end there, especially with the races heating up and the postseason teams that were getting ready, they knew it meant time, to start prepping and getting their guys ready, and just that much more important to strategize and get ready early, and be ready to face the, I guess, throw your best pitch out there. Get your game plan ready and go out there for another day at bat. But yeah, I do think that with less games to play, that it gives way less time to maybe slack off, or be ill prepared, because there's no time for that. Because once playoffs start, all the good teams are there. Everybody that is there, that work to be there, they want to be there. They've earned every right of it, and I think just in this kind of season, I think it's even more of a reason to get after it and want to be the champion. So.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, it was a shortened season due to the pandemic, and on top of that, I guess just help teams out, or just to get maybe more fans in attendance or more eyes on the MLB. What the MLB decided as a league is they expanded the playoffs. What that means is they initially, I believe it's 12 teams, I believe, right? 12 teams that make the postseason from throughout the MLB in its entirety, and they expanded, I believe, to 18 teams. So that's a little over half the league was able to make playoffs, and in my humble opinion, very quickly. I don't know if that was necessarily good, but hey, more playoff baseball means more fans and more fans watching, and that much more postseason magic and postseason, you know, a lot more postseason fun. That being said, the postseason, what's what the Dodgers have been, at this point they're regulars since for the past 4 years. They've been easily dominant within the NL West in their division. They just, as of yesterday, clinched their eighth straight NL West title. They're the first. They had the best overall record in the entire MLB. They were able to secure the number one seed in the playoffs, and ultimately they were just very dominant. It was almost as if they had 162 games to prepare, but they had 60 games to prepare, and ultimately it was just a lot of dominance from the Dodgers.
Yeah, definitely agree with that from the offensive, games where you had those 12 runs to three, or like the defensive pitching games from, you see Dustin May out there or Clayton Kershaw. Unfortunately, Walker Buehler has been dealing with some hand blister injury, so he hasn't been out there as much. But yeah, our bats have been really coming to play, and then the addition of Mookie Betts has just been paying wonders for us immensely
Yes.
on defense and offense.
Shout out to Mookie Betts, a successful trade. I I'm very happy with the trade, and to know that he's going to be with us for another 12 years is very exciting. He's a superb baseball player, and a great guy, so I'm happy he's going to be in Dodger blue for a very long time. So on to the team leaders. Team leaders. So baseball, the way it works a little differently is we have several categories to cover. First being the batting average. So that means very briefly, every time the guy comes up to hit, how often are they going to get a hit? So for the batting average leaders for the Dodgers, number one, the one and only, the orange beard, the Long Beach King, Justin Turner. He had the best team batting average with a .307. How'd you feel about Justin Turner this season?
I felt that he's been productive for us. I haven't really enjoyed seeing him sidelined for so long, especially with the shortened season. I do believe it was a hamstring that got him, or that's been nagging him here and there. But it's obviously we know he can hit the ball. He's been doing that for us for quite some time, from the homers to the left side droppers, with the single hops, or just hitting it right in the gap where nobody can get to it. But yeah, his bat's been there. But yeah, I'm just a little reluctant to see him getting injured on and off, especially getting up there in age, and the Dodgers' reluctance to actually pay him, unfortunately. So it just sucks to see that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the bad side of the front office at times. The Dodgers are so good for so long, but they're also very quick to. It almost feels like a revolving door sometimes with the guys that they have. I think it was when the Dodgers clinched, I believe on Saturday it was, or Saturday when they did clinch. It was very odd to me, and it was a broadcaster. I don't know if it was I think it might have been Oro actually. And he was like, "Oh, the only two remaining players that were still on the Dodgers since they first started their since the first division title they won up until the eighth straight division title, the only players that were still on the team were Kenley Jansen and Clayton Kershaw." And that took me back because I love the Dodgers, that they have a lot of stellar players, and yeah, it sucks to see any of them go. But again, that's just the side of baseball that not a lot of people like. But it's still good to see, and hopefully JT can stay with us for the rest of his career. He deserves that at least. He's been with us for so long. He's been a very productive guy. He's also helped the Los Angeles community in a lot of ways. So he's just a very superb guy. But yeah, we hope he stays healthy. We hope he, pinches in the playoffs and just does a lot for us moving forward in the playoffs. Next would be the lover boy for a lot of people. And no, I'm not talking about Cody Bellinger, but I'm talking about Corey Seager. He tied for first in batting average with a 307 batting average. Corey's your boy. You got Corey Seager socks.
I definitely do.
How do you feel? How'd your boy do this season?
He's just been on fire, man. I mean, I'm really glad. It's been sucks to see him go down, like I said previously, for all of last season with his terrible knee injury. Unfortunately for that, but just seeing him come back has just been stellar. Like I said, hitting the freaking seams off the baseball bat, making plays defensively. But yeah, I've just been really impressed with his batting average. As you see, 307. His ribbies have been getting up there. He's just making all the right plays. Really been clutch hitting for us. And yeah, I just really glad to see him hitting the ball because he's been on the defensive tip for a bit now as part of his rehab. But they want to get you out there on the field, moving your body, working, especially where his injury was at. But unfortunately, a lot of guys know that you don't really get that feeling of hitting until you're in a game. Because even live BP is something different. But for him to have all that time off to not really see those live pitches, but to still get after it, and once when Mookie wasn't having his days, or Cody's been unfortunately slumping this season, he's been the guy for us. So I'm
Yeah,
really glad to
definitely
see
that
it.
guy. And I think even before, I mean, I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of people prior to Cody really flourishing and being the amazing beast that he is on the baseball field. I think a lot of people saw Corey as that number one guy alongside JT at times, and for him to really flourish like this, I think is great for him and great for the team. Next would be your boy, the newest addition for the Dodgers, Mookie Betts. He came in second or third in batting average with a batting average of 292. So that's a little under the 300 mark. So he's hitting pretty well. Mookie also is close to leading the Dodgers in home runs. Very briefly, or just however long you're going to take. How did Mookie do in your eyes?
I thought he made a very big impact, a very huge impact his first year here. Off of the trade. I think he knew in the back of his mind that they paid a lot of big bucks for him, so that he needed to come to bring his A game, his play, because obviously they had their intents to keep him here for long term. Just what he has been doing, he is a World Series champion, so he has it under his belt. But yeah, it's just been great to see a lot of signs pointing positively toward him continually do this. He's very young, especially in the profession of baseball where they prioritize getting up there in age and lasting a long time
Play, you could
willingly.
be 50 and play. I'm just kidding. I mean, at the MLB, no, but you can probably play in your 50s if you wanted to. But yes, baseball, you can be older and play for a very long time. You can easily play into your 30s, late 40s kind of thing. Not late 40s, excuse me. Early 30s, late 30s kind of thing, maybe even in your 40s. And it's stellar. So I'm in agreement with Alex that it'll be a pleasure to again continue to see Mookie Betts shine, and hopefully this pushes through the playoffs. For a lot of Dodger fans, playoffs are almost the boogeyman at times with how the lack of success we've been having. But we won't get into the Houston. I just have to briefly mention them because they are basura. But we won't. That's the last of that. And last but not least, to round out the batting average leaders for the team is going to be the catcher Will Smith, batting a 289. How'd you feel Will Smith did this season?
Honestly, I felt that he was kind of one of the guys that just blended in just a tad bit. He was, I think trying to get his groove back because he's had that, yeah, he just been like really in the middle of the pack there, but he's been solid for us. I think catching for a lot of people, and just defensively, just being the guy. So.
Yeah, Will Smith, a rookie last year, played a lot last year. He's now starter this year. Switches with Austin Barnes. I think he's going to be our set catcher for a good while. Hopefully he stays with us. If they don't trade him or anything like that. But he's a very good hitter. He knows how to be productive. He's a good catcher. He catches for Clayton. I even think he catches for Walker. So he's that guy, and I'm glad to see him kind of really elevate his batting average and just continue to become a better hitter. So now hits, those swing of the bat and getting a base hit, doubles, triples, hits. The leader for no surprise for hits. The leader in hits for this year would be Corey Seager with 65 hits, very similar to batting average. Then we have Mookie Betts 64 hits, and then we have AJ Pollock, who we have not mentioned yet, with 54 hits. So in the hits category, what'd your takeaway as far as hits go, and where did you was there something you weren't expecting, something you weren't expecting as far as the hits leaders for this team?
No, I am kind of surprised that it is such a close tie between the two. I thought Mookie was kind of taking it out of the water compared to how he usually hits, and also just Corey having a stellar year and really a breakout or come back from the injury and everything. So I'm just surprised about how close they are. But yeah, you were to ask me at the beginning of the season if it would be one of the two or two people, it'd be them two. It'd be Mookie Betts or Corey Seager to lead in hits for sure.
Yeah, so his first mention of the podcast so far, AJ Pollock, he had 54 hits, and he's also, I think he's a big power hitter for us. We didn't see a lot of him
A lot of
last.
strikeouts, unfortunately, out of those. But whatever.
Yeah, but that's the double-edged sword you have with power hitters, unfortunately. But he's that power hitter we've kind of needed at times. Very similar to Jock Peterson last year. A lot of high strikeouts, but also bombs upon bombs upon bombs. And AJ Pollock was also been that force this season with 54 hits. A stellar hitter. Last season he was dealing with nagging injury, so he wasn't there to the best of his capabilities, I feel like. But this season he's done a lot better, and I think he's going to continue to get better into playoffs, and hopefully he can be the left fielder, center fielder, outfielder that we need to kind of push, push the Dodgers into playoff mode. I think a lot of these guys, they're very productive and they know what they're doing, but it all comes down to what they're going to do come playoff time, because a lot of the fans, including myself, I'm really just ready to really see them in playoffs and really flourish in the playoffs. I know prior to last season when we ultimately got knocked out of the first round to the Ultimate Champions, which is a halfway compliment, I guess. But we ultimately lost in the first round to the Nationals, and then prior to that, we got cheated. Ultimately, I believe Boston also cheated. They didn't get reprimanded, and they weren't seen as harsh as Houston. But we potentially got cheated out of 2 World Series. And I'm not even saying we would have flat out won, because who knows, the game of baseball is very mysterious in a lot of ways. But yeah, just as a fan of the Dodgers, I think it's a lot, and I'm just really expecting regular season's nice, but I'm really expecting a big jump come playoff time. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely would. Hopefully, hope to see that. I do think that I think there needs a switch that needs to be hit for the players because unfortunately, I think they do hit maybe cruise control, especially maybe not right now, but I think especially in the past they've hit in cruise control. Just waiting for playoffs to start, especially those years where they clinched it earlier. They just blowing past everybody and they're just waiting to get there. So I don't want to see them, take any days off, take it easy because they have that, clinch spot and, they're just waiting to see who they play. But I'd rather get after it every day, game plan for kind of every opponent that you might be facing, or, if you have an idea of who you may be facing, just start preparing now and just get in the mindset of, every baseball game is important, at least the next one that you play if it's come postseason. So
Yep, every game is important. Every game is very important, especially in playoffs. But if you really just keep the mentality of every game being important every day, I think that really helps them. And I know we both said like, hey, they kind of need to hit that switch. I think for a lot of them they have. That's where you're seeing this continued success from a lot of these guys. But I think they need to really, if the switch isn't already on, turn it on, and if it is on, then go into hyper mode, overdrive kind of thing, because it'd be nice to see, and I think they're gonna really push. And 60 games isn't a lot, so that's also something to consider when they're used to having over 100 games to play. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just glad that they're starting to fire on all cylinders, and they're just as a team doing very well. Next are the home runs. Everybody loves them. That's when the ball goes out of here. So for the home run leaders, we got 3 main guys. It's gonna be Mookie Betts, who leads it off with 16 home runs for a team high. Next and tied for first place is AJ Pollock with 16 home runs. Then in third, you're gonna have Corey Seager with 15 home runs, and the number 4 spot. He has yet to be mentioned. Unfortunately, he's actually struggling quite a bit this season, but he was able to elevate the ball and bust some bombs out of his at bats, and that's going to be Max Muncy, who hit 12 home runs. So from these 4 guys, is there anything surprising or anything you would like to mention?
no, but don't say anything that is surprising to me. What
Yeah,
is expected that.
yeah, definitely Max Muncy hitting close to 40 home runs last season. 12 home runs isn't really a surprise for me. Again, I briefly mentioned his slump is actually what surprised me more. He's currently still slumping, but again, I'm glad he was able to elevate the ball and get it out of the ballpark. And the other three guys, they've just been our core hitters for us: Mookie, AJ, and Corey. Those are some really good baseball players, and I'm glad they're able to contribute in that way. Next is going to be our struggles. So we talked about a lot of the positive players on our team, the AJ Pollocks, the Mookie Betts, the Chris Taylors, the Corey Seager's, but not onto our struggles. So, as I just mentioned, Max Muncy has been struggling pretty mightily. He currently, up until Monday, had a batting average of 192. So 90% of the time he is making out. Other than that, he's striking out or getting out. He has 60 strikeouts, which leads the team, 39 hits, and again 12 home runs, which is good, but out of the rest of that, obviously very poor. What were your expectations of Max this coming into the season? And now, through his slump, how do you feel he can improve, or what are your comments on Max?
I just think because of like the type of hitter that he is, or the Powerball hitter, like he needs his location spots. Maybe they're maybe getting a little better taste of him. A better chance to see him. Where they can't necessarily leave the ball or his weaker spots, or maybe they're again just used to facing him a little bit more. So they're able to they hit him where he can't hit the ball, or he struggles to hit the ball, or he maybe is decision making, who's choking his bat mechanic, or he's changed that up a bit, or his batting coaches told him something, or maybe he needs to look back at the film to see where the swing's at or where he had it beforehand. But yeah, I don't know, can't really tell you where to pinpoint the struggle, but to see him have that low batting average along with the strikeouts with the hits is rather uh
Troubling, I would say,
yeah,
to say the
troubling,
least. Troubling, but
especially where he hits in the lineup and where we've seen him hit before and where we need him to produce. And yeah, just being putting him up there, fearing for the walk rather than look, seems to be strikeout is what he's doing more as of late. So
yeah, and I only say it's a struggle for Max because if he wasn't this guy who was able to almost hit 40 home runs in a season and be a cleanup or even a five hitter to now like maybe a 8, 7, 6 hitter who is struggling to put the ball in play and striking out a lot. It just so far removed from what he was last season. So that's again the biggest fear for me is that he's slumping, but I think he can go back into last year. Last year's Max Muncy, just going to take him a little time and hopefully sooner rather than later because playoffs start this weekend. So next would be Kike Hernandez. He's a fan favorite, very funny guy, very nice guy, very mustache guy. I would say a lot of he knows how to style a mustache many ways. Very cool guy, but he had a batting average better than Max Muncy's, but only a little. Had a batting average of 220, and he had an on base percentage of 270. He only had 32 hits and 5 home runs. So for me, the struggle more so is I think the lack of ball in play. A lot of the games I've seen him in, it's a lot of hit or miss. He's either popping out or he's hitting directly into a fielder, or he just not getting the ball where it needs to be. But he still has that defensive prowess. Absolutely, he's a stellar, close to Gold Glove fielder. He's a platoon guy, utility guy. He can go pretty much anywhere you put him on the field. So he contributes a lot. But yeah, just from the batting perspective, I think he struggled and that he just needs to improve. Next would be the other sweetheart who isn't named Corey Seager. That would be Cody Bellinger. For anybody who's been watching any bit of baseball, this is far removed from the NL MVP, Gold Glover, Golden Slugger award, all that stuff. Batter to now I would say rather average, even maybe even struggling batter in Corey Seager, who's had a batting average of 239 and only 12 home runs. That being said, how do you feel about Cody Bellinger, and do you think he can turn it around? I would hope you say yes, but if not, why don't you think it's too? Why do you think it's too much for him, or what's going on?
he was awarded the Silver Slugger, so just
Silver Slugger, excuse me.
yeah, so he was awarded the Silver Slugger as well as the rookie, I know Rookie of the Year a couple seasons ago. But yeah, I was just definitely disappointed, and just to see that 239 is the average. That's supremely low to where we're used to seeing him up in the three ranges, even close to fours. So I think again, it's maybe not as much, as I was talking about with JT is like the injuries, but maybe it's more of a
Mental thing. I think a lot of these guys, the mental aspect of baseball, and Alex and I were discussing like the first few weeks of the baseball season. Like, I think it is a lot for like any professional athlete, but especially baseball or just any sport to not have your fans there. I think for a lot of us who have been to Dodger games or been to Dodger Stadium, it's a completely different atmosphere. Going in itself is its own. I would say it's its own attraction. Just being able to say, "Hey, I went to Dodger Stadium," with its own environment, and not having that, I think, can mentally affect a lot of players. And I think that's what it is for Cody, because I think he's a very social guy. He's a very personable guy. Personable guy. So I think that's what it could be, if you would agree.
Yeah, I would say that like that's part of it, but I think mainly the mentality part of it for me is maybe not really being super engaged as maybe like a regular full season or a full 182 games. But yeah, that'd be where the mentality comes from, that of maybe not fully focused in, or maybe not fully focusing on where he's messing up, because there's been issues in the past where Dave Roberts has had to bench him before for not taking plays too seriously, or not necessarily having his head in the game when it'd be games where they've clinched. Clearly, they've clinched, and these are games that are meaningless. But he's out there half running or giving up base hits on very basic plays. So it could be again a mental thing, but maybe not fully checked in or fully aware, or he just wants to wait till he needs it. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I can't pinpoint exactly what the struggle is on, but I would say maybe it's the mentality thing of not being
Very
prepared.
valid point. I did forget that, folks. The benching of Cody Bellinger. He's a lot of people's fan favorites, but yes, you also have to be aware of the faults of every player and just every person in general. And last but not least, the Jock Pop, Jock Peterson, the Great Hambino, the cool guy with the glasses, the I don't know what other nickname he has, but I call him Jock Pop, so we'll say Jock Pop. Jock Peterson, he is struggling very similarly to Max Muncy with a batting average of 190. If I'm not mistaken, that is the lowest on the team for anybody who's played over 30 games. He only has 7 home runs, and his on base percentage is 285. So 20% of the time he's getting on base. Other than he is not getting on base any other time. So yeah, he's been struggling as well. But again, he's very similar to AJ Pollock and a lot of these other power hitters, that if he's not hitting it out of the park, then he's not doing much with it. So I think again he just needs to get engaged. And a lot of these guys come playoffs, they need to turn that switch on, as we've been saying. Now on to my favorite part of baseball, and not a lot of people's, but my favorite part would be pitching. We have some stellar pitching on this team. Prior to the season, a lot of people were very antsy about our bullpen that we have, and the starters not knowing what our 5-man rotation is going to be, stuff like that. But we had a very good season. We had Clayton Kershaw being phenomenal as usual. We had Julio Urias really showing his starter capability and really honing in on his craft and getting and becoming a better starting pitcher. We had Dustin May, who a lot of you remember was a rookie who got called up midway last season, but he was now called up fully this season. He was put out a starter. He showed a lot of promise. He had a lot of stellar games. He was able to do what needed to be done. We also were able to get Walker Bueller, who also unfortunately had some injuries, but when he played, man, was he on? He was spectacular. We also had Tony Gonsolin, the Cat Man, the cool guy with the cat pajamas. He probably has cat pajamas, I'm sure. And then last but not least, we had our relievers, but we'll start with just the starting pitchers. So out of the 5 guys that we had starting for most of the season, who was your favorite?
I would say for me, my favorite, just seeing Clayton Kershaw go out there and do his thing, like kind of over and over again every season, just going out there, seeing that curveball do his work, or that fastball hit the location that it needs to, or the two seamer making its movements and things like that. But yeah, I just love to see it there. our main guy go out there because he's been the Dodger boy for some time now. Everyone's saying, can he really get it done? Because he has the stuff. He's electric. He's dynamite. He can, strike anybody out with the goods. But can he really get over the hump? And so waiting to see. So our guy CK out there and getting his K's out there, getting him up. That's all we can ask for. But we just need to see it in playoffs. So that'd be my favorite. Just seeing Clayton chop him up and knock him down. So.
That was very selfish for me. For me personally, I enjoyed watching, although it's very limited, Walker Bueller. I think he is the one. At this point, he might even be the one of the two punch, but the 1-2 punch that the Dodgers have. He has a stellar fastball, almost hitting the 99, 100 regularly. He is, he's a competitor. He's aggressive. He knows when to turn that switch on. Any chance he's gotten in any sort of situation last season and even in this season, the limited starts he's gotten, when it's time to shine, he shines. Whether that's a World Series, when he starts a World Series game or a playoff game, he just knows when to be on, and he is currently my favorite player. So it was nice to see him go out there, but unfortunate that he is having issues with with blisters. Those don't hurt for anybody, but especially somebody who works with their hands and throws for a living. So that wasn't too stellar. But yeah, the starters ultimately did very well. We had Clayton Kershaw, who went 6-2 in 10 starts. He had 6 quality starts. He had a low ERA of 2.16. He was able to strike out 62 guys. He only gave up 641 hits. He gave up 8 walks, and he gave up 8 home runs, and he only had 14 earned runs on him. So as Alex said, very usual, very predictable, very awesome regular season for Clayton Kershaw. Next, we had Julio Urias, who was 3-0 in 10 starts. A lot of no decisions, but in his 10 starts, he was able to get 4 quality starts. His ERA a little bit more than Clayton's, but still relatively well for a starter. He had an ERA of 3.27. He had 45 strikeouts. He also unfortunately gave up 18 walks. He gave up 5 home runs and 20 earned runs. So, there is room for improvement there as far as giving up runs, but, it was nice to see him do his thing as a starter from someone who was in the bullpen for so long. It's nice to see him start. And then next we have Dustin May. How was Dustin looking this season?
Dustin actually had a official record of 3 wins and 1 loss in 10 actual starts. They only jotted down that he had 3 quality starts. He finished with an earned run average or ERA of 2.57. He accumulated or totaled a total of 44 strikeouts. He finished up with 16 walks, gave up 9 home runs, and finished his season with 16 earned runs. So just by those numbers in particular, it's kind of hard to gauge, especially with a rookie pitcher coming in. You don't really know where they're necessarily going to land at on the statistical categories, but you see that his runs are actually a bit further down than Julio and a couple of other starters, and his ERA is right where you love to see it, along the 2.5 range. Not too many quality starts as they stay there, but him going out there and just being present and giving good innings is what we need him for. So.
And next we had Walker Bueller, who unfortunately didn't start as many games as we would have liked him to due to injury, but he tallied a 1-0. He tallied a record of 1-0 in 8 starts, and he was able to pick up a quality start. He had an ERA of 3.44. He definitely got 40. He definitely got his strikeouts worth with 42. He tallied 11 walks, only gave up 7 home runs and 14 earned runs. So a lot of the same stuff from Walker. A lot of strikeouts, a lot of great fastball movement. It's a lot of strikeouts. Not as many walks as you like to see, but still relatively low for the strikeouts he has, and the low number of home runs he gave up is always a good thing.
Definitely.
And then last but not least for the starters, we have Tony Gonsolin, the cat guy, who actually was even in his win-loss record by going 2-2. In 8 starts, he earned 3 quality starts. He tallied an ERA of 2.31, so second lowest on the team. 46 strikeouts, so very close to the lead. But so he had a good amount of strikeouts. He walked only 7 batters. He only gave up 2 home runs and was able to keep the earned runs to a low of 12. So now that we had the starters, I think we both are pretty pleased with the starters. They did a lot of good stuff throughout the season. But I think coming into this season, the starters weren't really the issue. It was more so the rotation and how these guys were going to play. But the starters did what they needed to do. That being said, we're now moving over to the bullpen or the relievers, which is where we had some of our issues throughout the season. So before we name any names and pick on anybody per se. Oh, overall, how do you feel the relievers did?
I'd say there's like a lot of new names that needed to, go ahead and see and make names for themselves
Very true.
after transactions and things of that sort. So I couldn't necessarily say if I had a, outlook or perception or necessarily like a formula that they had to follow, but I just wanted to see them, see what they can do out there. If they're able to, be put into those tough situations where we can't necessarily give up a run or like we, really need these outs or to yeah, you just really need to make those plays that relievers need to. So there was really no formula or anyone or anything to judge them by. But yeah, so far, so good. There was a couple of instances where I didn't like necessarily some of the management movements of part of the movement of pitchers or who to put out there. But
That's you, Jake McGee, baby. Where are you supposed to be, huh?
so yeah, I just didn't like some of those instances. But overall, I do think the new addition of training is also a big benefit to us. We gotta hopefully wait and see if it for it to play out. But yeah, there was really no other than the slight surprise of uh Brewster Gratterall.
Yes, that would be Brusdard Gratterall, who we acquired from the Minnesota Twins in exchange for Kenta Maeda and I think a couple other farm players. I wanted Rich Hill also went to Minnesota, but that was through free trade, through the free agency, not through trading him. But yeah, so he was also very stellar. A lot of names, a lot of guys, but I think the main two guys for the relievers would be as Alex said, Blake Trinian. He was able to cut even on the wins losses. He had an ERA of 3.86, 22 strikeouts, only gave up 8 walks. He gave up a homer, he gave up 11 earned runs. He was able to tally 9 holds and a save, and all that on 25 innings pitched. So, that's a lot of action for a reliever. So, yeah, I think he was able to settle himself in and kind of do what he typically does. But not like trending, but I would like to say the best reliever for this season was most likely, even in a lot of less outings, was Victor Gonzalez. I know a lot of you who may not have been watching recently or just a lot of the season of Victor Gonzalez was a rather late addition. I believe he got called up and he has been stellar since he's been put in the game. He's tallied a 3-0, 3 wins, no losses. He has a sub-2 ERA of 1.33, 22 strikeouts, no home runs, only 3 earned runs, only 2 walks, 2 holds, and all of this was on 20 innings pitched. So you could be saying, oh, well, he only has that sub-2 ERA because he hasn't faced a lot of guys. Well, this is on 20 innings pitched, and he was like the number 2, 3 guy in the rotation. So he definitely proved his worth, and I'm excited to see him in postseason. And I do think he is gonna do very well for the Dodgers coming out of the bullpen. And last but not least, a lot of my personal favorite closer, if I had any other, which would be Kenley Jansen. Kenley had I think, okay season. Definitely not what we're used to seeing out of you know, someone who I see Kenley as someone who can definitely shut down closer when he's in the game. The game's over kind of thing. Very similar to Aroldis Chapman. Unfortunately, Aroldis Chapman has championships, but Kenley hopefully will have one pretty soon. But Kenley Jansen in 27 appearances and 24 innings pitched, he was able to tally a record of 3 wins, 1 losses. He had 11 saves, and he had an ERA of 3.33, so straight threes. 33 strikeouts and another set of threes. 9 walks. He only gave up 2 home runs and only gave up 9 earned runs. So I know in a couple instances against the Padres, for example, he wasn't able to maintain the lead, and they ultimately lost a couple games because of his pitching. But I do think that he's going to get better, and just last season it was a mechanical issue with his arm and where the ball was placed, and he's had heart issues in the past, which is a lot bigger than just a baseball. So hopefully he's keeping that under control. But I'm excited to see him in the playoffs and really show what he's about come playoff time.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree that it has been, kind of a worry just for I think Dodger fans to hear and know that he has off field issues definitely regarding his heart, which is serious for anybody, but especially just the heart condition that he's had as a child. I mean, obviously, if you don't follow them close, you wouldn't know, but he's actually dealt with a heart issue for some time now. He's had a couple surgeries to deal with it. It's mainly an upper respiratory a valve in his heart that basically malfunctions and they need to go in there. Especially it actually was erupted when they went up to Colorado to play. That's when one of his first major setback occurred. So it just sucks to hear. I just always scared that something might like that might happen, but he's been able to play with no news of that, and just he's ready to bring it. Like I said, I think they're all on the mentality of wait to get there, but we need to get into gear now and become it especially with the shorter season, bringing the A game every game, and every pitch is the last. So
Yes, so that was your Dodger news. So I will not do it as good as Vince Scully, not that I ever could, but that was time for Dodger baseball. And we thank you, and we look forward to keeping you guys followed with the postseason, and we're looking forward to the first divisional series and wild card playoffs. So we will hear from you guys very soon in regards to the Dodgers, and yeah, we will keep you guys posted.
definitely.
What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Andre, and yes, the hateration is about to start. I can already hear it, and Alex is breathing. Yes, we will be covering the Las Vegas Raiders. I know, sounds weird. I'm still getting used to it myself, but hey, they are now the Las Vegas Raiders. And might I just say, to this point, I would say we're having a pretty spectacular season. We are now have a record of we are now 2-1, 2 wins, 1 loss. I would say two pretty big wins, one pretty big loss, unfortunately. But I think we are heading in the right direction. We are currently second in the AFC West, mind you, in a division with the Super Bowl champions Kansas City Chiefs, a tough team in the Los Angeles Chargers, a kind of tough team in the Denver Broncos, and yours truly, the Las Vegas Raiders. So it's a very tough division. I think any one of those four teams could potentially make playoffs, although Denver's kind of wetting the bed in pretty much every game they played so far. But, that's Denver. Denver's going to Denver. That being said, like I said, the Vegas Raiders are 2-1, and their first win came against the Carolina Panthers, who was recently under the head of Baylor head coach, who's now the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. And they're also under the new guide of Teddy Bridgewater, the now Carolina Panther quarterback, who's formerly the New Orleans Saints quarterback. And the Vegas Raiders went into Carolina and ultimately got the victory by a score of 34-30 with many key defensive stops throughout the game. Derek Carr was spot on. I think this is definitely Derek Carr's year. I'm not gonna say MVP or anything like that because there are some pretty superb quarterbacks in the league. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, all those guys. I'm not trying to be like just a Raider fan. Derek Carr can be a very productive quarterback this year. He showed that in week 1 he was able to go 22 for 30, only dropping 7 passes. He was able to throw for 239 yards with a touchdown pass, and he had a rating of 107.5. So that's very good. Now rushing, your boy, honestly I believe could have potentially been the offensive rookie of the year for last season. But Josh Jacobs, he on 25 carries, he was able to get almost 100 yards, and he got 93 yards, and he was able to get 3 rushing touchdowns. So very awesome and terrific game for Josh Jacobs. I wouldn't expect nothing less. Um, in my belief for the Raiders, when Josh Jacobs is on, the Raiders are on. When he's turned on, the Raiders are turned on, and when he's not having that well of a game, the Raiders aren't necessarily having that great of a game. But I do believe they're getting better in that respect. And as far as the rushing for the Week 1 win, the receiving for the Week 1 win, we had Henry Ruggs III, the number first round pick for the Raiders. He was able to snag 3 receptions for 55 yards, including a deep bomb from Derek Carr that almost led to a touchdown. Josh Jacobs, who's a dual quarterback, was also able to snag 4 receptions for 46 yards. So he's just a little bit all around the field and doing what needs to be done. And Darren Waller, mind you, I believe a top 5 tight end in this division. He was superb last season, as for fantasy or just in general, for football fans. So I think he can have another superb season, with and pairing with Derek Carr. I think they have a great connection, and Derek Carr knows how to throw to him, and Darren Waller was able to have 6 receptions for 45 yards. From the defensive standpoint, a lot of key stops, but there weren't any key. I don't think there were any key plays from one specific person. I know towards the end of the game, Max Crosby really turned on the Jets, so the defensive line stopped Teddy Bridgewater a couple times. But I think the star for that game was Jonathan Abrams with 13 total tackles, and he was able to get a tackle for a loss. As a non-Raider fan, how did you feel the Week 1 victory went? Even though you're gonna say it's nothing, but hey, it's still nice to hear someone else's point of view.
I would definitely say that it was a rebuilding Panthers team that you don't really know what other than Christian McCaffrey, who's gonna get you your yards and your catches and your your stats, but it was a rebuilding Panther team that kind of was looking for you guys to win. So I think it was one in the bag for you guys. And yeah, the defensive end at the stop was really crucial for you. And yeah, you guys are doing well so far, getting those close wins, and just see how it plays out.
All right, so speaking from a non-Raider fan to a Raider fan, a game that he believes we were supposed to win. Now we go on to Week 2, a game that I believe most people, if not only Raider fans, believed in. Most people believe that the New Orleans Saints were going to beat Las Vegas in their first game in the new all Gillette Stadium. But no, did that happen? No. On Monday night, the Las Vegas Raiders came to play, and they got the victory on Monday night by a score of 34-24. Derek Carr, for his second week in a row, was spot on with going 28 for 38, and he was able to get 284 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So he was spot on, definitely. He was all around the field throwing dots and dots and bombs, and he was just spot on. And after rushing, Josh Jacobs doing his thing again. 27 carries, getting 88 rushing yards. And Jalen Richard, the number 2 back, who's very elusive. Who's a receiving back who's very quick. He was able to get 26 yards and 2 carries and a rushing touchdown. For those of you who remember on Monday Night Football, he was able to get a pitch run and scored from the 20-yard line. It was very exciting and very exhilarating. And the receiving yards, this was Darren Waller's first big game of the season. He was able to snag 105 yards off of 12 receptions. So the Saints had no answer for him that night. We also saw Edwards, another rookie wide receiver, getting 42 yards on 2 receptions, and Hunter Renfro, the slot third down guy, getting 3 receptions for 37 yards. And defensively, Nicholas Morrow was able to get an interception, and there was a total of 7 total quarterback hits. So the defensive line, the linebackers got to Drew Brees all night. And last but not least, we have this past Sunday's game against the New England Patriots. Coming into this game, I thought the Raiders had a lot of hype, a lot of positive energy going their way, being 2-0, having a win against the Panthers, and then having a win against the Saints in their own stadium. But then they go to Foxborough and have to play Camp Newton and Bill Belichick. And when you have to do that, there's not a lot you can do, but it was a real reality check, I think, for me personally as a fan, but just also, just as a football fan and a Raider fan, it was, I guess, on one hand, it was good to see Cam Newton do what he can still do, but also crushing to kind of see that from the first half to the second half, I felt like it was two different teams. In the first half, the Raiders were able to keep up with Bill Belichick, and the defense was on him, and Cam was getting pressure, and he was getting sacked. And then in the second half, it just kind of went to garbage. I don't know if it was the coaching scheme or what, but the Raiders just didn't have an answer for it. So the Raiders ultimately wound up losing that one by a score of 36-20. And on more unfortunate news, our first round pick and Henry Ruggs III actually left that game with a hamstring injury. To today, September 28th, he is still out, and he may be listed as questionable, but we will see. So that's also not great to see out of our first round draft pick. For passing yards, Derek Carr was able to go 24 of 32. He threw 261 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and he was sacked twice. Rushing yards, Josh Jacobs still did. He was pretty productive, 16 carries for 71 yards, but he ultimately fumbled one time, which is very unfortunate. And then next we had Hunter Renfro, who on 6 receptions was able to snag 84 yards, and Brian Edwards was able to get on 2 receptions 48 yards. The defense had some, good moments. Max Crosby was able to sack Cam Newton twice, and Jonathan Abrams was also able to pick off Cam Newton. Both of those were in the first half. That's when, the defense was on to Cam Newton, but then, as I said, they kind of fell through. So, as a non Raider fan, how do you feel the game against the Saints went, and how do you feel the game against New England went?
I think that the game against the Saints was, yeah, definitely surprising for most people because they're expecting for the top NFC team to, just kind of go out there, do the thing. Alvin Kamara has, 100 plus yards and like, 9 or 10 catches for like 60 to 70 plus or however much he was going to get. But everyone is anticipating for you guys to get blown out, for everyone to be shocked to find that, you guys do get the first win in your guys' home stadium. It kind of is exhilarating and all that. So I think it was a good win for you guys. But yeah, just going into, Foxborough and, playing Bill Belichick inside of his stadium is just really tough for anybody to do, especially Raiders with the history of kind of losing there and everything. So I just think it wasn't a good. It was a good show, as we're reading Derek Carr stats. He had no interceptions. He was able to make plays, but that fumble hurt you guys. And I think the defense honestly is wearing out towards the end there, giving up on run plays or they were just
Yeah,
able
Rex
to.
Burkhead, that bald guy, not a big fan of his. He was able to get a lot of yards for, and really almost no, it felt like no pressure at times, but yeah, ultimately, I would agree with you, unfortunately. And yeah, so just to in the first 3 games of the season, I want to briefly go over the team leaders. Obviously, Derek Carr leads in passing with 784 passing yards on 74% completions. That's almost a career high for him to this point. He was able, and he's averaging 265 passing yards a game. He has 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Awesome. And he was sacked 5 times. For rushing is obviously going to be Josh Jacobs. He has 252 rushing yards on 68 rushing attempts. He has 3 rushing touchdowns and a fumble. And last but not least, the receiving. Darren Waller still leading in receiving yards with 159 receiving yards, 86 of them being yards after catch. So he can break off a tackle or just get those extra yards that need to be got. And on 20 receptions, he was able to get 159 yards, and he has a touchdown catch. The next guy would be Hunter Renfro with 11 receptions, getting 142 yards, 70 of those yards being yards after catch, and he also has a touchdown catch. And on defense, not too much. Nicholas Morrow, who's a cornerback, has the most tackles on the team, total tackles with 21. Max Crosby has the most sacks with those two on Cam Newton, and there are 2 interception leaders, both having one in Jonathan Abrams against Cam Newton, and Nicholas Morrow got one against Drew Brees. Now, that was Raider news. I hope you guys enjoyed. And we will be doing predictions very soon for the upcoming week. But 2-1 is a good spot to be. We're second in the West. We can still put up a good fight against the Bills next week, and I think we're gonna have a successful season. It's just a lot of up and down, but Derek Carr showing he can be that guy who can lead this team. Josh Jacobs doing what he needs to get done. But it was a tough week in Foxborough, but we're gonna turn around and really improve and get better and take it game by game, practice by practice, day by day, and just elevate and get better. Now, thank you so much. Now we are on to the San Francisco 49er news. I know I don't want to either. No, I'm just kidding. There's a great team. They are coming off of a Super Bowl loss. They still made it to the Super Bowl, which is, props and shout out to them. But they are starting to this point in the season, they are 2-1, same record as the Raiders. So your team, unfortunately, has been hit with the injury bug. Would you like to discuss the not tiny? I would say an injury, maybe cough or injury sneeze or I don't know, but definitely not an injury bug. But would you care to discuss the injuries for the
So yeah,
49ers?
unfortunately, this season has not been, taken into full strides as far as injury goes. We've been hit with some pretty major ones to start off the season really early, extremely early, unfortunately, actually. So we just got found out, in our week 2 matchup, against I do believe it was the Jets, that our 2 defensive linemen, both Nick Bosa and D Ford, will be gone for some serious time, both tearing their ACLs, one minor, the other major. So those are both gone for the season. Unfortunately, those are 2 big losses. And then we do have Jimmy Garoppolo, our quarterback, who was not gone for the season, but suffered an ankle sprain again, also in the first, who aggravated it in the Arizona matchup, which was initially a loss, unfortunately, and then again, just made it worse in that second follow-up game. So, just he's still dealing with the ankle kind of day-to-day injury, but was unfortunately not able to play this past weekend against the Giants. And then we have also our number 1 tight end, which we recently just signed for a big wad of cash, big moolah. Is George Kittle, who has been having that reinvigorated knee since last season. He's actually been nursing it. So they just want to be super, super careful on that. That's why, because he has been able to play, he has been considered healthy, but he's been a healthy scratch for the past, definitely last week. And then we do have our backup a tight end, Jordan Reed, who we actually just signed off a free agent waiver, who unfortunately went down with his knee, but him being gone for a far longer time with a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks with his sprain. And then also we do see that new injuries to Richard Sherman, Greenlaw, and Antonio Witherspoon are all short term, within 3 to 4 week ranges. They will be back. But again, just the injury bug has been hitting us quite literally everywhere on defense and offense. But even all bearing that, and just besides all that happening, we're still out here to get these plays and get dubs. Fortunately, with Nick Mullins coming in, which we have seen him since last season, really take his hand into the pot and try to make wins for the team, which he's been doing. You can say the competition level isn't up there. Playing the Jets and the Giants back to back weeks, and those are gimme games. But we were still able to put up 35 plus points both times, and he's able to fit in Shanahan's system, Kyle Shanahan's system, and get the ball where it needs to be. And we do have our rushing attack, which is filled with Raheem Mostert. And mainly he's going to be the guy that's going to take all the handoffs and try to keep everything together, while our injuries are getting healed up and our guys are getting banged up, but ultimately back to normal. But the first game that we ultimately took a loss in was against our in division rival, the Arizona Cardinals, which Kyler Murray had a fantastic game, unfortunately to say, as a 49er fan, but he was doing really good things out there. But Jimmy Garoppolo went at 19 of 13 of 33, went 259 passing yards, 2 touchdown passes, and no interceptions. So that was a good look for him, and no INTs, but we did end up losing that game. And then we seen Raheem Mostert on 15 attempts go for 56 yards with no rushing touchdowns, and he was also the receiving leader with 4 receptions, a TD catch, and 95 yards. And then secondly, to follow him up on the receiving list would be George Kittle with 4 receptions on 44 yards. And for that game, we do see an INT for Jaquiski Tart, who has unfortunately also been hit with the injury bug for a period of 2 to 3 weeks for his hamstring. And then the following week, we do see I guess the no supposed gamey game with how terrible the Jets have been playing since the start of the season, but it was a win of 31-13. Jimmy Garoppolo did actually play, but ended up leaving that game. I do believe he was a scratch at the end of the half, but he was able to play. Was go for 14 attempts. We complete 14 attempts on 16 attempts, 14 passes on 16 attempts. He completed 2 touchdown passes and went for 131 passing yards. But as I mentioned, was removed from the game at the end of the half. Nick Mullins, who was in put place for him, who has been his quarterback, who has played a couple games with him going down 2 seasons ago, but he went 8 for 11 on 71 yards passing with an INT. So as you see the score 31-13, it was a big rushing attack on both ends from Jared Jet McKinnon and Raheem Mostert. With Raheem Mostert, the rushing TD with 8 carries for 92 yards. So for 8 carries, almost 100 plus, those are some pretty big. I'm sure break you down plays on the running end. It could have been some sort of rush on the end or maybe some sort of sweep, but those plays for just 8 carries on 92 yards are big rushers that take a lot out on the D. And Jared McKinnon with the 77 yards and 3 carries, also a lot of damage. And then for the receiving end on that game, we do see the Kelvin Kendrick Bourne. I apologize. Kendrick Bourne is leader with 4 receptions, with 67 yards, and then he is injured currently. But Jordan Reed had himself a game with 2 touchdown receptions, 50 yards on 7 receptions, and our defense was actually playing relatively well to hold the Jets to only 13 points. But we see a sack from Eric Armstead, and that was pretty much the only highlighted play. But overall, I did feel the defense held it down. Even when we did have our main guys out, we were still able to get it done. And lastly, last week or this following weekend, we did see the 49ers go to Giant Stadium to play them, and they did take the win 36-9. So we do see the offense still putting up the numbers and defense still shutting them down. So we do see Nick Mullins on 36 attempts passing. He completed 25 of them. He also completed a touchdown pass with no interceptions and completed his passes of 343 yards. Our rushing attack was led by Jared Jet McKinnon, who on 14 carries ended with 38 yards and a rushing touchdown, and Brandon Akayu, who on a jet screen sweep to the left, actually for 3 carries. Actually, on the jet screen was for the touchdown pass, but on 3 carries had 31 yards. So again, you get to see Brandon. Brandon Akayu also was necessarily a draft receiver, but they're trying to get him included into the run game just with so many injuries we've been having. But yeah, and then just to highlight the defense, we do see that Kerry Hyder Jr. had a sack as well as Deion Jordan, and Fred Warner had himself an interception. And just our team leaders after the third week in the NFL season, we do see Nick Mullins leads in passing with 47 attempts and 33 completes with 70.2 completion percentage and 414 passing yards, 206 yards per game. So he's averaging about 206 yards a game, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, and a QBR of 62.8. So there's not a lot to go on him for here, considering he's been plugged in and only a couple games with not a lot too much to go for him as far as play calling goes. But as the season progresses, and if Jimmy is unfortunately unable to come back, then he's going to have a lot more on his hands. But we will see another comparison to him would be on Jimmy G's numbers: 49 passing attempts, completing 33 of them. That is a 67.3 completion percentage with 390 passing yards, 199.5 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, no INTs, and QBR is 79.2. So you do see that the numbers are kind of similar, but it's just more of the game experience going to show for that.
Jimmy's obviously a better quarterback, though, without saying, so it's definitely a hurt. But I guess it's nice to input Mullen in and see some progress.
Yeah, definitely. Just to able to kind of keep his foot, which is what he's trying to do right now. And then on the rushing end, we have Raheem Mostert with 448 rushing yards and 23 attempts, 110 receiving yards on 7 receptions, and 74 yards per game. And no fumbles this season, which has been a great news because that has been a struggle for us and a little bit of the more closer games we've had past season. So, and Jared McKinnon has on 20 rushing attempts 139 yards on 6 receptions, has earned 59 receiving yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown for Jared McKinnon. And on our receivers, we do have our leading receiver, Kendrick Bourne with 164 yards and 10 receptions, and our defensive leaders, our tackles total is Fred Warner with 26 total tackles. Our sacks, Kerry Hyde Jr. with 2 sacks, and RNTs by Fred Warner and Jaqueski Tart both have one interception to themselves. So overall, it's been a rather stressful week. Even though we have coming out with our W's and we have put up a lot of numbers, we still don't know how we're going to look in a post-injury or when we're supposed to be healthily normal. Obviously, other than the long-term injuries with the short ones with Richard Sherman coming back, Jimmy G, George Kittle, all of our main guys, if they're still able to go out there, barring just mainly two main dudes, we can still go out there and get wins is what I'm looking forward to. And the offense looks to be all there with the play calling. So
Yeah, as a non-49er fan, I think it'll be exciting to see you guys compete in that division with Russell Wilson and Seattle Seahawks. You also have Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. You also have the Rams with Jared Goff and just pretty much the same cast that were able to make playoffs last year. So it's definitely going to be a lot of competition, I think, in that division. So it'll be interesting to see you guys compete with them. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see, and hopefully you guys keep it competitive. I hope you guys get your guys back, but Raiders are gonna have a better record at the end of the season.
yeah, we don't know about that one just yet. So
Just yet,
we
we'll
have
see.
the same
But as of right
same
now, we have
record.
the same record. So I'm taking it a week by week case. So we didn't have a good. Last week was not great, but this week it's week by week, game by game case. So we're looking to positive energy and a lot of W's for the week moving forward. So I want to thank you guys. This is our first official episode back. I know we said we are back, but we actually are back now. We appreciate all of you guys listening. We want to thank you, and we also want to mention that we really do appreciate you guys listening and taking the time out of your day to enjoy our content and just try and just give sports a listen to, even if your idea of listening to this podcast is to know more about sports. Then I'm glad you're taking the time to do that. But ultimately, we both just want to thank you for giving us your ear for an hour or however long you listen to the podcast, and we appreciate you. We hope you stay safe, you stay warm, you stay comfortable, you stay mentally sane. I know a lot's going on in the world, but just know that you're not alone. You are cared about, you are cared for, and we just hope you guys stay safe, and we will get back to you very soon.
Definitely looking forward to bringing you guys more sports news, just more topics to talk about, and ultimately, yeah, just some more time with you guys on the podcast. So appreciate it. Have a fun and safe rest of the week, and hit you guys soon.
Hey, what's going on? This is Andre. I want to let you know that we both appreciate you listening, and I want you to know that we hope you enjoyed it nearly half as much as we both enjoyed making this content for you.
Remember to always be kind to one another, be loving towards one another, and lastly and most importantly, love the city in which you're from and you represent, which is Los Angeles.
And again, we want to thank your ears and your minds for giving those to us, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Peace out.
Hello, everybody. This is Andre here, one half of the ALnDreShow, the podcast. And I want to let you know that down below in the description, we're going to have some pretty cool, pretty important links that I think you should check out. First is going to be social media for the podcast. That is the best way you're going to want to keep up to date with sports news and also with the podcast. Next is going to be our own personal Alex and I social media, so you can keep up to date with us. Tap in, DM us. You're going to talk about some stuff on the podcast. You want to make suggestions, all that jazz. You're going to want to follow us on our social media. But last but not least, and most importantly, is that Anchor app link. What the Anchor app is, it is a free podcast listening app. Again, if you don't always have access to Spotify or YouTube, what you're gonna want to do is download this app so you can again get a free experience that allows you to still listen to this podcast in the best way you can through a number of podcast listening devices. So thank you so much, and have a great day, and have a even better month, year, week. Thank you, and have a good one. Just want to quickly mention, if you could drop a like and subscribe if you want, if you enjoy this content. Yeah, just real quick, just go ahead and like and subscribe for us. Check us out on YouTube. Appreciate it.